buka malagi elana helui luna kaina. Ho malalamani ho bume hanani ho alani na ki. Wow, the boy, wow, my lucky hot holiday. Eh, olaga pulo my aloha, aloha mai kako. I keep my yapakaya pau yakeya halavai. Talk story with some Hawaiians and Hawaiians in STEM. My name is Kula Irvine, and we're ready to begin. This is the first episode of Honua Scholars, and it's run by Honua Scholars. So I'm going to take away and give it to Kyle Yoshida. Kyle.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Kyle. I'm one of the staff at Honua Scholars. We're a new organization founded this past summer, and our mission is to empower students to pursue STEM careers and advanced degree to become Hawaii STEM leaders. Tonight, we have a panel of amazing speakers facilitated by Dr. Lelemia Irvine, and we welcome questions from the audience and encourage you to use the Zoom Q&A function throughout the event. Lelemia is Kupuka'aina, a lineal descendant from the Aboriginal families that sprouted out of the land of Wai'anae. He earned a bachelor's and master's degree in biological engineering, in addition to a master's and doctoral degree in civil engineering from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Notably, Lelemia is the first Native Hawaiian kane to earn a PhD in any engineering discipline at UH Manoa. Currently, he serves as the first appointed physics faculty at the University of Hawaii West Oahu, where he is developing the physics, pre-engineering, and engineering courses within the mathematics, natural, and health sciences division. Lelemia is self-described as a rain farmer, seeking to connect sky, aquifer, and culture through the physics of fluid dynamics. In general, his research interests involve the water, indigenous knowledge, and STEM education nexus. Specifically, his research thrives on interdisciplinary collaborations focused on indigenous-grounded STEM-oriented education, water sustainability, and natural and biological applications and implications of environmental physics. It is my pleasure to welcome back and hand this event over to Lelemia.
Aloha and welcome. I'm just going to share a screen before we begin and talk about this talk story. Hiki hele ke Kula Nui, Kanaka's in STEM pathways, health and STEM pathways talk story. And so before we begin, feel free to use the chat function. Let's see who's here. Give our aloha, your name and where you're based in. We want to aloha you. I'm waiting. I'm looking at the chat right now. Aloha Zoe from Hawaii Island. Aloha Tina from Makiki. Great. Anybody else? Aloha Becca, that's my colleague from UH West Oahu. She's calling from Manoa. Aloha Nalani from Kane'ohe. Aloha Pohaikalani from Kalawa, Motuoteave. Aloha Taua. Sarah from Makakilo. Hi, Sarah Gansey. Aiden from Hawaii Island. Joshua Parker. Imua, class of 2021. You just started to follow me. I just followed you back. Oh, hi, Dr. Lynette Williamson from Eva Beach. A lot of people, Kat Burke from Ka'alu, all over. We're going from all over. Hilo from Big Island, from Hawaii Island, all the way to Kauai, it seems. So we love each and one of you. Oh, hi, Kyle. Hi, Austin Burns. Plenty of people we know. It's a big reunion. Aloha nui. We got to holamua. This is a wonderful reunion from Wananui Akia. And what we have is, before we begin, we're going to have these 4 fantastic panelists. And we just ask that you're more than welcome to ask questions at any time. I'm your facilitator for the evening. I just ask you to practice the Aloha spirit. It is a law that was codified in 1986, and it was a gift from us, to us, from Auntie Pilahi Pikahi. And this is how she describes Aloha spirit. So when you ask your questions through the chat, just have akahai, which is kindness, meaning kindness to be expressed with tenderness, lokahi, meaning unity, to be expressed with harmony, olu olu, meaning agreeable, to be expressed with pleasantness, ha'aha'a, meaning humility, to be expressed with modesty, and ahonui, meaning patience, to be expressed with perseverance. This is a brave and safe space. We love each one of you. This is a great time for Talk Story, and it's on a Wednesday, Cinco de Mayo. So welcome here, and I'm pleased, we're just gonna go straight into it. And we're gonna introduce our first panelist, is Makana Silva. He hails from Waianae and is a PhD candidate at the Ohio State University studying cosmology and astrophysics. So far, he has worked on escaping atmospheres of exoplanets, studying primordial black holes as candidates for dark matter, and the effects of dust on weak lensing statistics. He has tutored at the University of Hawaii in physics and math. His passions and motivations for his career choice include the desire to advance and perpetuate educational opportunities for Napua A'o Hawaii, the beautiful children and flowers and descendants of Hawaii, by expanding the horizons of their imaginations through STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. He enjoys strongman, playing games, and going beach. Without further ado, Makana, take it away. Mahalo.
Mahalo kumulele mea. Aloha mai kako. Thank you everyone for showing up, and yeah, I'll start us off. So just to make sure, hopefully everyone can see this PowerPoint. I think so, I think I'm sharing it now. Okay, so like Kumulele Mea said, my name is Makana Silva. I hail from Waianae. That's where I grew up, that's where I was raised. I graduated from Kamehameha Schools in 2014. I went to University of Hawaii Manoa, graduated with my bachelor's in physics in 2017. And currently I am a student at the Ohio State University, getting my PhD in cosmology and astrophysics. So what do I do at OSU? So I haven't found like necessarily my niche yet. I don't do one specific thing. I've kind of been broad in my research portfolio. So here are some of the examples of some of the research I've done and some of the research I'm gonna do. So like Kumula said, I've studied primordial black holes as candidates for dark matter. And by the way, I'm not going to go too much into detail with all this. We can go into that in the Q&As later. I've studied escaping atmospheres and exoplanets. These are planets that orbit stars very, very far away from our solar system. And I've studied their atmospheres as they've been blown away. The paper I'm finishing up right now involves studying the effects of dust on galaxy selection using weak lensing. So essentially, dust affects how we see, or what I found in this project is that dust affects how we see and select galaxies based on these large survey images when we use weak lensing. And probably the next set of projects I'll be doing will be looking something like the last bullet, the dynamics of compact astrophysical objects. So essentially the motion and dynamics of neutron stars, black holes, and white dwarfs, the very mysterious, dense objects in the universe. And probably in there, it'll involve gravitational waves as the means to study them. But I got to finish up the effects of dust first, and then we can get to that. So that's kind of what I do as a PhD candidate, right? So before that, I was a grad student at OSU. So I did all my classes, you know, learned the foundational stuff before I could start delving in as a, you know, as a full-blown like research student. That's what I am now. So did my classes, did all that stuff, and here I am doing research. So why do I do what I do? Well, for me, I have these goals as an academic. Probably my biggest goal is to ultimately become a professor at the Institute for Astronomy at Manoa. And the reason for that is because, well, one, it's in Hawaii. This is my home. And you know, I've always loved teaching. I've always loved learning things. But I think one of my personal life philosophies is you can learn and discover all there is to know about the universe. But at the end of the day, what really matters is what you do with that knowledge, right? That ike. And the reason why I want to be home is because I not just want to teach in a classroom setting or in a university setting or give talks, but I want to go back out to the communities that shaped who I am. I personally believe that when you go out there and you share all the ike that you've acquired from all across the world or wherever you go, and you bring it back home, it grows, right? And it grows the keiki of that community. And I'm not saying, you know, I'm trying to necessarily say like, you know, everyone should go into physics or astrophysics or cosmology. It's just exposure. And that's what I want to do. I want to create more exposure to the field that I fell in love with and the reasons why I fell in love with it as a Kanaka Maoli, right? As a Native Hawaiian here. So that's kind of my big academic goals for my future career. On a side note, as Kumula mentioned, one of my favorite hobbies to do when I'm not working is strongman. And so a real good goal, which I think is fairly attainable for me, would be to achieve Hawaii's strongest man in the super heavyweight division. So on the picture there, the lower right, you see this awesome crew right there. That's Mono Barbell here in Oahu. They're the strongman crew that I train with. Awesome guys. It's a beautiful sport. I love it. Great way to decompress when you're, you know, learning all you can about the universe. So, you know, from where I started in life, what I've accomplished, and where I want to go, I've always kind of had these words of wisdom with me that kept me up, you know, kept me strong in face of adversity. So I want to share some of that with you guys today. So, by the way, I'm also not going to go into too much detail about these points in particular, just because we have a finite time. So if you guys want to ask questions about what I mean by these, we can ask later. But here we go. The first one is rest, but don't rest too long. You're going to find in whatever journey your life takes you, whether it's in academia, you go right to the workforce, whatever it is, there's going to be obstacles. There's going to be people that knock you down, people you probably don't expect to knock you down. But one way or another, you know, it's going to kick you down. It's going to level you real fast. And there's nothing wrong with staying down for a bit, crying if you need to, screaming to your pillow, scream in the bed, whatever you need to do. But just don't stay there forever. Don't stay there too long. Because the only way you're going to advance, the only way you're going to change is by getting uncomfortable, is by breaking out of that cycle and to keep going forward. Right? That's what this first point means, rest, but don't rest too long. That leads into my second point. Only you know what you can do. And, you know, for me, this is what I faced. I had a lot of times in a lot of facets of my life where people told me what I could do. You know, you weren't smart enough to do this. You weren't big enough to do this. You can't do this because this and this. You know, at the end of the day, folks, only you in your heart know what you can do, right? That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It may not even work the first couple of times you do it, right? You may have to try new things. You got to get uncomfortable. You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? It sounds a little oxymoronic. But when you figure out just all the things you can do by doing things you never imagined you could do, that's when you really unlock that true potential that's in you. And finally, take all the opportunities you can. You know, I'll say this twice. You're only guaranteed to miss all the shots you don't take. I'll say it again. You're only guaranteed to miss the shots you don't take, right? Not saying you're going to get it all the time, but if you don't take it, I can tell you right now, you ain't going to get it. And, you know, you never know. Don't sell yourself short. It never hurts to apply, because at the end of the day, the worst that could happen is that you probably get rejected. So make sure in this journey of yours, whether it's academia, again, workforce, no matter what it is, take the opportunities you can. Take them all. And that actually wraps up, you know, like my story, what I do, and kind of like my words of wisdom to share with you guys. So if you want, we can go into the Q&A later when all the rest of the fabulous speakers have gone. I want to thank Honua Scholars for hosting the event, Kumulele Mia for being an awesome facilitator, and all of you guys right now who are attending. Mahalo for you taking the time out of your day or your evening. I don't know where you guys are at, for coming here and listening to us. We got 3 other panelists. They'll be great. So mahalo, everyone, and that's all I have for you today. Aloha.
Wow, mahalo makana for your words of wisdom. And we're just going to move on to our next panelist. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat. If you have any words of, you know, wisdom for makana, please feel free to use the chat. We're there. We just ask you to hold your questions, but you can use your questions now Maverick, please, Maverick Abella, can you start putting your slides up? And then I'm going to read. I'm just so pleased and honored to introduce you to Maverick Abella. So she is a PhD student in environmental science and management. No, wrong. Sorry, wrong one. I'm reading. Maverick grew up in Kapolei and graduated from the Kamehameha School's Kapalama campus in 2015. She studied biomedical engineering at Columbia University and is now a first-year medical student at the John A. Burns School of Medicine at the University of Hawaii. Maverick has participated in a breadth of research ranging from cancer biology to microfluidics and has studied the radiation from nuclear testing that still threatens the Marshall Islands and our siblings in Micronesia and throughout Pacific. More recently, Maverick has pursued clinical research and engineering projects and hopes to merge these two interests as a future physician in Hawaii. In her spare time, she gets into the ocean as much as possible to surf, to spearfish, and to scuba. So honored to have you, Maverick. It's all yours.
Aloha. Yeah, my name is Maverick Abella. I grew up in Kapolei, and this is my family. I love the West Side, mentioned already, but surfing, spearfishing, sports, it's really what I grew up doing. So I went to Columbia schools. I would say I was a pretty average student. You know, college was on my radar, but wasn't really intending to leave Hawaii to go do that. Then I did this science research program that really strung me onto the path of science. My first science research project was on this plant called the kukui nut on cancer cells, with a mentor who really pushed me and really found something in me that was worth pushing. You can ask anyone on this panel. I think I was like pretty kolohe back in high school. But yeah, this project really led me to the UH Cancer Center and then science fairs, and then eventually to Columbia College. And then my path to medical school was really windy after that. Went to Columbia College. If you could imagine a school that was really the exact opposite of Hawaii, like bingo. You know, Hawaii girl, never left. They told me it was cold, but really had nothing to really gauge that with. So yeah, winter, it's rough. I was taking all of these like liberal arts classes, some basic science classes, nothing that I was really passionate about at the time. And, you know, basically at the end of my first year, I remember like I had a GPA that literally someone told me was just like not like enough for medical school, you know? So I was like, oh man, what am I gonna do? So after that, I did this internship, this Akamai internship. You guys have heard of it, but it's this amazing engineering internship here in Hawaii with these awesome people here. And, you know, truly after this internship, put something on the like International Space Station, fell in love with engineering. And so much so that I transferred to the Columbia Engineering School. And I also just like another like barrier along the way, but I remember my academic advisor saying, you know, Maverick, like engineering is so much more difficult. Like, you know, are you sure about transferring? No one really transfers. And I was like, yeah, I mean, sure, like why not? You know, and engineering really was difficult, like honestly. But like for the first time, I really loved what I was learning. I mean, there's so many different projects, group work, hands-on work that I was doing. And academically, honestly, I was like doing so much better. So at this point, I'm really looking for opportunity. And I found this project in the Marshall Islands and signed up, sounded awesome. Went to the Marshall Islands for 4 weeks and collected really a lot of this ocean sediment, fruit, fish, and testing the radiation that existed there from the nuclear tests that were done there post-World War II. So at the time, this really was just like a science project, and then really looking more like into it, you know, spending a lot more time on the islands, I realized it was really something more. For one, it was like an all-women team in STEM, which was awesome. But also it just felt so good doing something good for people. I mean, there are 300 people, 200, 300 people living on these isolated islands in the Northern Marshall Islands. And like looking more closely into the situation, I just realized how much more detrimental things were for the Marshallese that, you know, I just flew over my head. Basically found that, you know, it's dangerous to eat the fruit on this island. And since westernization and the introduction of fast food, things like diabetes and cardiovascular disease really became the hallmarks of health for the Marshallese. I mean, when you can't sustain yourself on the resources of an island like they were used to, like what else can you turn to? I don't know about you guys, but that story sounded sounded really close to home. Something that's really happening and is happening currently in my own Native Hawaiian community. And so just having this new perspective on what, the social determinants of health were here in Hawaii and in the Pacific, just had this renewed motivation to be a doctor. And then just more specifically, like wanting to be a doctor here in Hawaii. And to me, that just means a lot of things. For one, Honua Scholars, like starting this program, I didn't have any, doctors in my family, didn't know who to really turn to. So really extending the hand down is something super important to me. Doing research against my family here in Hawaii, interweaving like ideals and principles of Native Hawaiian health into practice. And then just even finally, like the hobbies that I like to do here in Hawaii, it just makes the most sense, honestly, and just like why I want to be here. So some advice that I've learned along the way. First, especially for you high school students out there, it is okay to fail. Like honestly, what you're seeing today like makes it look like it was an easy transition from one step to the other. But I promise you what you're not seeing right now are all of the exams I failed along the way, the sleepless nights, weekend sacrifice, job and medical school rejections. And you know what? I used to feel so defeated like after each failure. But what I've learned is that, you just keep going. Like you need failure to really learn and grow seriously. And if it's really also easy, I think you're actually just doing the wrong thing. Okay, secondly, Hawaiians know how to have fun, right? But also find ways to get work and fun done at the same time. If you like surfing, volunteer for Access Surf. You get in the water and you get to help and meet new people. If you like hands-on work, volunteer to hit you a fish pond. Things like that. Really look for stuff like that. And then finally, look for opportunity. Me and all the other panelists, we're going to talk about all these amazing opportunities that we had that put us on the path we are on now. And I guarantee you it didn't just happen to us. Like it wasn't just handed to us. So definitely put yourself out there. Do your research on things that could interest you. For you high school students, go to college. It doesn't matter what college you go to, but go, like, you don't need to know what you want to do right away. I mean, I didn't. But you need to go and find out, and college, really, that's the place to go do that. There's all these like interest group meetings. And even if it's something that might not interest you in the first place, like just go and learn, meet people. Like all of these random science talks, I mean, even like this, like if you're here, awesome, go to them. Because I guarantee you, you're gonna learn something. Okay, and then finally, like find a mentor. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the people willing to extend that hand. And I think for all of us here at Honua Scholars, we wouldn't also be here without a mentor. So that's why a lot of us are trying to give back through this program. Yeah, finding that support system is so important. And then also just lastly, for more medical school advice, Honua Scholars, we do MUA sessions and I'll be for May 12th. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Wow, thank you, Maverick, for an amazing presentation. And we do have some questions for you, but we're going to hold it till the end. Thanks, Caleb. I acknowledge that we've received them. We're going to move on to our next speaker, Nakua Farant. And could you just take down your slides, Maverick? And we're just going to transition to Nakua. Nakua, can you please put your slides up? Mahalo. I am pleased to introduce you to Nakua Farant. He is a PhD student in environmental sciences and management at the University of California, Santa Barbara. He is currently exploring how ecosystems revegetate on abandoned sugarcane and pineapple lands in Hawaii and hopes to inform future allocation of land for conservation, food production, and cultural activities, among other priorities. In his free time, Nakua enjoys surfing, running, and biking. When he's home in Hawaii, he catches up with friends, mentors, and volunteers at Lokaia, like Heia Fish Pond, or Lo'ikalo, like Ho'okua Aina in Maunawili. Aloha, aloha, aloha e Nakua. We're pleased to have you from Kalipuni. Take it away, brother.
Aloha, everybody. As model for the introduction, Kula I'm Nakua Farant. I'm a PhD student at UC Santa Barbara right now, studying environmental science and management. And so I grew up on the north shore of Oahu near Palmalu, which is known as Sunset Beach. We spent a lot of time in the water, me and my brothers, Nick and Vance. And lot of time at the beach and playing sports. And then from a pretty early age, my mom had us in the yard doing yard work, as I'm sure is so common in a lot of Hawaiian households. And gradually I got really interested in gardening, and I've continued that even while I've been in California. Here's my garden here now. And as we got a little bit older, my mom would have us go and volunteer out in the community, echoing some of the sentiments that Makana was saying as well, as far as giving back, and Maverick, as far as giving back to the community. And so we would spend time going to local ea and Haleiwa or Ho'okua'aina, Manawili, and working. And it was always so rewarding to be doing the physical labor. You always felt like you had done some major changes and had an impact, as well as you got to meet great people and share with the community, and as well as perpetuate your Hawaiian culture. And so it never really hurt that a lot of those volunteer work days would end with potlucks, and there'd be fried chicken from Pa'ala'akai Market or wherever. But we kept doing it through the years, and even now on our own for fun, we'll go and just do our own restoration projects that we've become involved with in other areas around our community. So my science career kind of began most in earnest at Kamehameha Schools, where I graduated in 2014. I had opportunities under Ms. Gail Ishimoto, who taught many of us, and you can see Makana was there too, and all of these guys were impacted by the science programs at Kamehameha Schools. And yeah, I was fortunate to have the opportunity to begin exploring science, and encouraged to explore science that was relevant to my Hawaiian culture. And I chose to start by pursuing microbiology projects in local ea, that Haleiwa-based fish pond that I mentioned earlier. And I looked at how the sort of underlying phytoplankton that were growing in that food system, and that's kind of like the primary food source for fish. And so basically, by trying to understand that aspect of the fish pond that they're trying to restore, I was hoping to kind of inform future management strategies. And I found a way to pursue research that felt culturally relevant and potentially useful to complement kind of the knowledge of our kupuna. And that's something I would encourage others to do as well. If you're not sure if you're interested in science, or you just feel like science is this very like Western concept, I mean, it's important to recognize as well that our kupuna really had a deep practice of kilo, this like observational approach to what they did. And they would, whether it was observing the tides and how fish would come and go in a certain area, and that would guide how they would construct a fish pond, or their approach to whether they would pursue dryland agriculture or design and develop lo'i that might be more rewarding in certain types of valleys on Kauai or Oahu or Molokai as well. So yeah, that's kind of where my scientific career began. And then I found more and more opportunities by putting myself out there, and through connections, I got to meet professors at the University of Hawaii, like Dr. Rosie Aldegato and Kiana Frank, Professor Kiana Frank as well, who I've just done research with both of them over the years at other local ea like Paipai'o He'eia. I've gotten to pursue research related to soil chemistry. I've gone from microbiology to soil chemistry. And that led me to also have opportunities to work in Aotearoa, mentoring some middle school students as well, or I had opportunities to teach them and grow and share cultural similarities with our cousins over there. And so just through the years, I've had great opportunities to learn as I've gone down my journey in STEM. And so I echo the sentiment of trying to put yourself out there and be willing to explore different opportunities, even if you end up doing something different the next year, the next summer. As far as my work right now, as Kumulele Mia mentioned, I'm interested in looking at sort of continuing to look at food systems, but in a different way in Hawaii. So this image will show how from 1980 to 2015, there's been drastic changes in the agricultural land cover in Hawaii. And you'll see kind of circled in these purple circles, there's some large areas of change where there's maybe been closure of some pasture land in Parker Ranch, or closure of a lot of sugarcane lands on the Hamakua coast, or elsewhere across the islands on Maui as well, and Lanai, a lot of change in pineapple. And so if you've traveled around this aina, you've probably seen a lot of this land isn't necessarily being actively managed. You'll see just random bits of vegetation growing on it. A lot of that looks like invasive species, and I'm interested in understanding where maybe native ecosystems are regenerating and trying to understand what's allowing those native ecosystems to regenerate. And at the same time, if some of this land is so heavily degraded from its agricultural past that native ecosystems won't regenerate, then maybe it's valuable to think about how given that it's already been agricultural land, maybe it could be recultivated again. And so understanding where it might be valuable to explore recultivation of crops that aren't necessarily pineapple and sugarcane, because those aren't necessarily serving our community and improving our local food security, but thinking about other crops that might be more relevant to our community as well. And also, I'm interested in understanding how Hawaiians can continue to hopefully get more access to some of this land, and whether it's to grow food or restore cultural heritage sites. And so that's kind of the direction of where my research is going at UC Santa Barbara. And as far as some advice goes, I would encourage you all to keep enjoying the opportunity to explore. Really take any opportunity you get to try something new, whether you see an internship opportunity, go for it. I can tell you that if you asked any of my family members, they wouldn't have told you that or guessed that I would be the one in our family who would have opportunities to pursue research in Peru or travel to China for some other environmental research, among other projects I've got the chance to do. And so those are just opportunities I've had by putting myself out there, by continuing to allow my ideas and interests to evolve and explore. And that kind of leads to my second point, which is it's a lot easier to learn what you don't like than it is to find like the one thing that you really want to do for the rest of your life. You kind of should be willing to, like I said, explore other opportunities and maybe figure out like, oh, this isn't for me. And gradually you get better at understanding like what you're into, and then you can hopefully find that passion you want to continue to explore. And finally, I encourage you all to grow together, and that kind of returns back to this whole idea of giving back to your community. And so much of what I feel like we do as Hawaiians is kind of learn from each other and help each other kind of boost each other up, and we kind of keep moving together. And so definitely as hopefully some of this has been useful to you, and as you continue to grow and have opportunities to share with others, I encourage you to do the same, and hopefully we can just keep advancing our lahui together. And yeah, that's what I have for now.
Wow, mahalo nakua. Thank you for that. Let's grow together and advance our lahui together. Could you put up your slides, Cami? We're gonna just move right on to Cami, and there's a lot of good things buzzing in the chat with Dr. Graham Tut about these undergraduate opportunities abounding. Yes, they abound. They're everywhere for our undergrads. So I am pleased to introduce to you Cami Tavares. She is a geospatial analyst for the Coastal Geology Group at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. From there, she earned a BS in Global Environmental Science and a Master's of Science in Geology and Geophysics. It was on the beaches of her one hanau in Waianae where her love and respect for the environment grew. In an effort to preserve these sandy beaches and people's relationship, Pilina, to these places, Cami currently works on updating the Hawaii Shoreline Study to inform coastal managers on how beaches have changed and are projected to change in a future of sea level rise. Without further ado, Cami, take it away. Imua.
Hello, Kako. Kalamai, I forgot to turn on my camera. Mahalo kumulelemia for the introduction. Aloha, everybody. My name is Cami Tavares. I am from Makaha, Waianae. I went to Kamehameha schools. What you're looking at is my ohana. This is my mom, Shauna La'a, my dad, Greg Tavares, and my 4 brothers, Billy, Trav, Jay, and Kolana. A little bit about myself and the things that I enjoy doing. I like creating things. So this is a leihulu that I worked on 1 year from today. And then this is some digital art that I did. And I also love spending time outside. So as you might have known or figured out from my introduction, I love the ocean, I love beaches. So I do spend a lot of time out in the ocean and along the coastline. But I do also really enjoy doing stuff more mocha. This is a wili tree in my backyard. So yeah, it's a little bit about me. For my academic journey, I went to the University of Hawaii at Manoa, so I stayed home. I got 2 degrees. One was in global environmental science. If you are interested in studying global processes or like anthropogenic climate change, this is a degree for you. And it's super flexible, so you can gear it towards what you want. Highly recommend. And then I got my master's in geology and geophysics. So how did I get there? I would credit it, to my onehana, to my home. I grew up in Waianae, and like the thing to do is to go to the beaches. And I spent a lot of time there. It was my happy place. And that really, I just knew that I wanted to do something to protect those spaces. And another thing I'd also like to give credit to my mom. She's a first-generation graduate of college. She got her master's, and she is working in education, and she's she has her national board certification 2 times. So she's super awesome, definitely set the bar high, but I love her, and yeah, she's definitely my inspiration. And then, so that was what got me to college and like kind of pointed the direction, but what got me through college and some major stepping stones were internships that I did. I did a program called PACES, another one called Kupu, and I was also a Honua Scholar. And I don't have enough time to go through all of them. If you're interested in knowing more about them, let me know and we can talk about it. But one thing that I will say is like, if you don't know what you want to do, and even if you do, like do internships, because that's how you really narrow down like the path that you want to go. One thing that also helped me was, as a Honua Scholar, I was required to find a lab to work in during the school year. And that's how I started working in the lab that I work in now. So I work for the Coastal Geology Group with my advisor, Chip Fletcher. And during that time, I started as a junior. And during that time, I was studying coastal erosion and sea level rise. And so from all of that, my undergrad and master's thesis developed. And so I'll share a little bit more about that now. So what I study is basically this equation, which is coastal erosion along a shoreline where there is a hard structure such as a seawall or sandbags that will lead to beach loss. So this is something that I only learned in college, but now that I know about it, I am seeing it everywhere. And it's a really major issue here in Hawaii. We've developed too close to an environment that needs to move. So what we've done is we've prioritized protecting properties over protecting beaches. And the thought of that is really scary because beaches are so important to us as island people. This is how we, they protect us from storms. They are an important habitat. There's so many reasons. They protect our access. I mean, they give us safe access to the ocean. That's where we socialize. Like, it's so important. And so it's really important that we address this issue. And so for my thesis, what I did is I looked at where there are hard structures today, where we might be seeing beach loss, and where we might see it in the future of sea level rise. And I did that for the entire island of Oahu. And if you're interested in looking, or if you're interested in my project, it was published over here in Scientific Reports. And I just want to share, like, for me, my motivation is thinking about the future generation. This is a picture of my nieces and nephews, and I want to protect this space for them so that they can have the same relationship and experiences as I've had growing up. So right now, I'm a geospatial analyst, and I work in the same lab. So I do a lot of computer work. This is just an example of what I do. I look at historical images. This is Makaha. And right now we are updating this data set using drones. So I do get some time outside. But in terms of like my academic journey, I'm kind of going with the flow right now. I am interested in getting a PhD, but I'm trying to find a way to not just do the science, but also add a social component, because I feel like working with community is super important, and that's how we're really going to get things done. So I'm trying to figure that out. But yeah, stay tuned. And my advice for people who are in college or are going into college is, first, join a mentorship program. This is how you get support through academics. And this is also how you learn about scholarships and internships. This is how I found out about all of the internships I got. And that's how I got school paid for. That's how I got to travel to many places for free. My second one is to find your kipuka. Find a place that, you know, can give you rest, but also allows you to grow. And for me, while I was in the sciences, I took a lot of classes in Hawaiian studies, and I took Olelo Hawaii my entire time in college. And so like that for me was like a way to, you know, stay grounded in just, you know, being a Hawaiian, in, yeah, just being Hawaiian. And my last advice is to just go for it. I am a pretty shy person, a pretty quiet person. And if it wasn't like for somebody just, you know, encouraging me to just go for it, I probably wouldn't have experienced the things that I've had experienced during my time in college. This was a really great opportunity, this picture here. This is a geology trip that I got to do to Papahana-Mokuakea, which is the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, and we did geology research over there. So it's like I would have never been there if I had not, you know, just gone for it. So yeah, that's what I have. Mahalo.
Wow. Mahalo, Cami. See, we can have a world-class education here in Hawaii. You can go away or you could come home. And she's being very modest, but the Honua Scholars is a prestigious and competitive award to get nationally. Wow. So every one of our panelists are just amazing. Look what Kanaka can do. Kanaka brilliance, Kanaka magic, Kanaka intelligence. And well, my auntie always says Kanaka intelligence. That's Auntie Flo. Anyways, we're gonna go right into questions, and just got some really great questions to ask you folks. Yes, Kumulelemia, ha ha ha. Yes, Zoe. Yes, Kanaka intelligence. So, I have a few questions. Man, you folks got some truth bombs. Can the panelists just open your mics so we can see all of your beautiful, beautiful faces? And if you're using Zoom, we're going to put it into gallery view so we can just have each other all here in one spot. I'm taking a selfie, sorry. And so let me pull up, I gotta pull my questions because I don't remember them. But before we began this effort of Honua Scholars took so much intentionality, and a very common thread amongst the story that was our Pico that connected all of us, even me to you folks, even though we're a decade plus apart, but you're my younger siblings, is Kamehameha Schools and our founder, Bernice Pawahi Bishop, putting us together. And we're just so glad to be there. And her grandfather said a wonderful epitaph. And I gave this challenge to our panelists to think about this phrase, I moe na poki'i a inu I ka wai awa awa a o he hope e ho'i mai ai. To my brethren and sisters, to my people, you know, go forward and drink the bitter waters, or ava, and there's no turning back. That war cry. What does that mean to you? This beautiful olelo no this olelo kaulana, this famous expression, this words of wisdom from our own alive, that brought us together in this excellence. Anyone want to share what does this mean to you and how you constellated to go forward in your pathway, and what would you share to people about this?
I mean, I can go first if no one, if you guys don't mind. You know, it's funny you brought that up, Kumu, when you sent the email. Through some of the things I've been doing here in Hawaii, someone actually asked me this question a long time ago. It was his name's Kimo Stone, cool guy. And he actually told us that exact phrase, and he told me to think about it. And so I'm gonna tell you the answer that I've been kind of thinking about in my journey here. when I hear that, the first thing that I think, I mean, like you said, it's a war cry. So I take it as, when you go into battle or you have a task at hand, you have to be intelligent, you have to be analytic, you have to be thorough. But when all those little boxes are checked, when you've prepared as well as you could prepare for the task at hand, and it's time, you go, like you charge large kind of thing, right? You got to go all out. You got to put your heart 110% in it when you prepared for it, right? And that's how I take it, and that's kind of the attitude that I realize in my life that's how I approach not just homeworks or school projects, but even this. I was actually getting psyched up in the bedroom. I was listening to some Mona Maule songs, and just trying to like get me in the right state to give this talk. So, it's for me that statement is just about being as prepared as you can be, like taking that time, and when everything is ready, the stars are aligned and it's time to shine, you got to go. And you can't go, half foot in. You got to go all in. That's how I interpret that ololo no eau.
Oh wow, that's some truth mana bombs right there, Makana. Yes, no can half blank that my family says. But yeah, I love your restraint in that too. Very Kanaka. Anyone else want to say something? Cami, Maverick, Nakoa. I'm calling you out, Cami.
Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, so the way that I was thinking about it was like thinking of it as like being a Kanaka in STEM. Like for me, I feel like sometimes the experiences I've had or seen people have, it's like it's hard to be Hawaiian in Hawaii, but we have to be Hawaiian in Hawaii. So when we like drink the bitter water, like, we have to like do the extra work to move forward, and we fight for that change so that we like don't just live in Hawaii, but we thrive in Hawaii where we should. And that's how I interpreted your question.
Love it. Oh, this is the new love symbol I learned from my kumu. Wow, thank you. Nakwa?
Yeah, that's a really Cami had a great answer. Yeah, I mean, I would just follow that up, I guess, by saying, just echoing, I guess, this having the will to be willing to push ahead, recognize, I guess, those who've come before you that have kind of laid the groundwork, but also, I mean, obviously, since Western contact, times have been hard for Hawaiians, and so you have to more and more, especially I think even more so as Kamehameha students, as you kind of led in with, we're in a top % of Hawaiians who've had great opportunities and given privilege, and it's, yeah, the schools do their best to serve the community, but we also got to take charge as well, given that we've had this opportunity and to give back, but also recognize that there's so much greatness in the Hawaiian community beyond Kamehameha as well, that the Hawaiians in general are pushing together, rising up. And so it's kind of, I guess, a message of yeah, as the message goes, to like come together and continue pushing forward. Like times have been hard, they're still hard, I guess, for Hawaiians, but I think there's a lot of light on the horizon if we keep working.
Brilliant. Yes, yes. Bring Kamehameha everywhere. I love that. Mana'o. Sorry, I'm just translating what you're saying to my words, but that's really awesome. Truth bombs, Nakua. Maverick, I love to hear what you got. Your mana'o. You're very kolohe. Bring the kolohe.
Yeah, I think just the biggest part is just knowing when to work. Yeah, have fun, play, but also, yeah, when the time is right and you gotta show off almost, and you gotta push forward, like do it 100% all the time. And I think that's just the motto I live by, and hopefully make some other students as well in the future. So yeah, that's all I gotta say. I think everyone else has said really amazing things.
Look, unmute myself. I do this all the time in class. I think I get this after over a year doing this. Thank you, Maverick. Just have fun, get the work done when we need to get the work done. I have a really awesome question from Keolohi Sabate. And this person asks, what's your favorite part about being in STEM and in the health field? Who wants to go first? Nose goes.
I'll go.
Nakwa.
I was volunteering anyway. But yeah, I've loved the opportunity, like I said, to really explore different things. I mean, maybe that's been unique. I've been lucky to have a lot of opportunities, and part of that, like so many have said on this panel, is putting yourself out there as well. And so I've loved getting to find connections between Hawaiian culture and science, and kind of blending this indigenous knowledge with more conventional scientific approaches. And a lot of kupuna knowledge was lost over the decades and centuries when a lot of Hawaiian culture was suppressed. And so trying to do your best to like reconcile what we have of Hawaiian culture and learn from the kupuna that are still here today, but kind of incorporating science where we can to kind of enhance that as well. I don't know, that's kind of what I enjoy about science.
Yo, who else has to add on? And then Cami, I know you're like itching to say something.
Oh,
Or Makana, okay.
Oh, Makana,
I'll
you
go-
can go.
I'll go after. I'll go after.
Okay. For me, like, as I talked about, like my motivation to go into STEM was just because I loved being outdoors and I wanted to protect that space and like protect our relationship to our environment and the things we get from it. And so, although I do a lot of computer work, I've had a lot of great opportunities to travel and be, you know, at the coastline, which is where I love to be. So like, that's my favorite part, is I fulfilled that dream of, you know, doing a job where I get to be outdoors. Yeah.
Oh, that's some stuff. Oh, Maverick, get it.
Yeah, health for me has been surprisingly really fun. Yeah, I always thought like medical school, man, it's gonna be a lot of studying and it's really hard. But actually, like learning about the human body, it's been so interesting. And I promise you, I know the journey to medical school can be really tough, but once you get here and once you're learning things that, you know, is really applicable, makes it almost like it does make it all worth it in the end. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm gonna Makana, you go for it. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. You know, for me, what at least got me into physics was always growing up. I've always been fascinated with how things work, and what I found in my journey through actually like microbiome, when all of us are in that picture of Miss Ish, and then going to chemistry, and then finally I landed in physics because I found out it was wonderful how you could get to a level where you could understand the harmonies of atoms and particles and how those very, very small things affect us and our daily lives, and not just here on Earth, but on a universal scale, right? From the solar system to the galaxies to the universe. And that kind of epiphany when it hit, like just drew me to physics. You know, it just truly understanding the workings of our universe and how we as human beings, like globally, how we fit into that role, you know, what we do and what that means. So that kind of drew me into, at least what's kept me in physics and why I love doing it, even though sometimes it can be irritating. I do love what I do.
That's important, loving what you do, you know, and there's that spark. I have a question from someone in our talk story. If I'm in summer school and I cannot participate in summer internship programs outside of school, how would you recommend getting involved in studying an environment? Can you go to summer school and do an internship? Or if they feel that it's overwhelming and can't do summer school and do an internship, but still want to get connected, what can they do for their field of study? Any advice? How do you manage time and do both? Because Cami, you did that, right? You mentioned for the Honua Scholars, yeah?
For the Honua Scholars, we did internship during summer. My advice for that question would be, if you can't do it during summer, then I would try to do it during the school year. And a way to do that is to look for a job in a lab. And that way you can get experience, you know, hands-on like work in your field. And yeah, that's one way. If you can't do that, then try volunteering with, you know, like to tag along with people. I think a lot of labs are pretty open to that, depending on what it is. Yeah.
Good advice. Anyone else? I have another question from Ichiashi. This person has two questions. What's the biggest obstacle that you faced in college, and how did you overcome it? Anyone want to go and share?
I'll go.
Yeah, I can start. Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Go Maverick.
Okay. Yeah, I started to write this, but yeah, the biggest obstacle for me was being really unsure of what I wanted to do, which really made me panic a little or a lot. So my recommendation for students is just be comfortable with like the unknown. And it's the way to remedy it really is just try everything that you just have like even a sparkle of interest in. Yeah, go ahead, Cami.
Yeah, I was just gonna say something that I had a challenge with was this feeling of imposterism, this feeling that I don't deserve what I have gotten because of like who I am. Like it wasn't because of hard work or anything, and so like that's something that I've struggled with, and I feel like the way that I've been working with that is by talking about it. You know, a lot of people feel the same way, like they feel like they're not deserving of things. And it's really hard when, you know, like I am like I am Native Hawaiian, I am Wahine, I am trying to go to science. Like those are all things, and it feels sometimes like I'm only here because I'm those things. So yeah, so like trying to figure that out can be challenging. But talking stories is definitely a good way to work through that. And I would also add that like I recognize my role, you know, like I am here and it's what I do with it that, you know, counts. And like, so it's like really about working my best to make the biggest impact and like fulfill like the kuleana that I have now that I am here.
To answer this question, I think my biggest obstacle, without getting too much into the specifics, was time. There's not enough time there's not enough daylight to burn, folks. I promise you that. And for me, living in Makaha, going to Manoa on the bus or my Dodge Neon that would break like once a week on the way there, it was hard, especially when I had to stop at Kapolei and work Subway by the Target and then go back home and then do all of that again the next morning. It was rough. It was really rough. And sometimes you just felt like, you know what, like that goes back to my first point I discussed in my talk about rest, but don't rest too long. It's like, you know, take your break. I shut my eyes sometimes for 4 hours and I have to get up and have to do it again. And there'd be times where I was, yeah, it was hard. And some people at my university didn't make it easier because some of them were just not nice to me. And so sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and persevere. And for me, yeah, I had that kind of like the Ololo no Eau that Kumu mentioned, that attitude is I just gotta go. I just gotta go right through. And then, oh yeah, that's right. And I was a tutor too. Yeah, that's right. So having that mentality of just like being hungry, knowing what I want, seeing what I can get, and just going after it. You know, doing what I gotta do, biting the bullet, being tired, bust up. That's kind of just, you know, that's kind of just how I achieved to where I am now, and the mentality I plan to use to get to where I need to go. Just do it.
I guess for those who are interested or do end up leaving Hawaii, I'm sure many can echo that. I think a challenge, especially as you go further away beyond the West Coast, even more so, it's I don't know, the change from home, both cultural shock and physical distance can make it more challenging. And so I encourage you to try to build that community of if you can find a college that either already has Hawaiians or other Pacific Islanders, or a community that you that resonates with you, that you connect with. That's, I think, super important, especially when you leave Hawaii, because college can be a while. I loved my experience away, and I think I grew a lot, and was always my intention to grow learning somewhere else and come back. But I will say that it was essential to have a lot of Hawaiians, I mean, a lot, but maybe not a lot on the East Coast, but some that I found and made community with that helped me get through the experience as well.
Wow, this conversation is so ono. And one part of that imoe napo ki'i, something pushed you, right? You are worthy, you belong, you got in for the merit of your work, each and one of you, and those who are coming after us. And your words, one of them I liked, Makana, kind of resonates, is get comfortable to get uncomfortable. You know, don't rest, but you do need to rest. You know, rest is very important in that process. And Cami really touched upon, you know, it's real. You know, these things that about, you know, am I worthy or not? But you are, we all are. It's just something that, because Nakoa pointed out this culture, not only physically moving to another place to go to Kula Nui, to the university, but also the physical university itself, whether it's here at the 10 campuses here in Hawaii or other campuses in Hawaii, the University of Hawaii system. It is a different culture, but there is a kipuka. I remember Cami saying that word, kipuka, you know, find your kipuka. And Maverick pointing out that there was someone that saw her genius in her and fished it out of her. And she believed them. And Nakoa too, resonating, like, you know, finding those people. Yeah, these obstacles are on the way, but you know what? Someone said something about obstacles that was really, really beautiful. That if it wasn't for failure, Maverick said this, right? If it wasn't for failure, you really need failure to really learn to grow. And so this is our first of many sessions by Honua Scholars, this mentoring session to fill that gap. And we're so glad to have each and every one of you. We just went a little bit over time because the conversation was so ono. I'm buzzing. I'm just gonna have to think about this for a while. But you know what? If someone mentioned that they're a teacher at a public middle school here in Hawaii, and they see that a lot of kids are getting lost in high school and don't have that support and encouragement and access to these programs from teachers, adults, or wherever, and they're just so inspired. And so hopefully they use this material and then that they can connect with you folks after, if that's okay. But because we have to stick to a schedule, and I'm your facilitator, and I don't want to get in trouble by, you know, our lovely Kyle Yoshida, the hostess with the mostest. Kyle, thank you so much for bringing all of us together. This is just one of many, and this is a wonderful beginning. And Kyle is dialing in from Stanford University, doing his PhD over there, and he's a brilliant person. So take it away, Kyle. Aloha. Mahalo.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Kumulelemia, for the great discussion, and also Nakoa, Maverick, Cami, and Makana for coming on to our first event. I also have another list of people. So Andy, Kalehua, and Shaylin. Andy and Kalehua are kind of our tech support. You guys can turn on your cameras. Yeah, and then they also did a lot of organizing all the social media posts. I also have a list of other people who helped with tech. Mihan, Leanne, Shashank, Kara, Bronte, Shaylin, Amy, and Charisse. Yeah, it really takes a lot of people to get this put together, and I appreciate all of their help. I also want to thank all of you guys for coming. We had over 100 people sign up. We're gonna have a lot more programming in the future. We also encourage you to keep updated by following us on social media, so our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And so this ends the formal part of our STEMinar, but we will have a reception in a separate Zoom meeting room. So if you have trouble finding it, I'll stay in this webinar session to answer questions. In that reception, there will be breakout rooms where you can meet and talk story with each of our speakers and also our facilitator. And you can ask any of your lingering questions or just talk story and network with other people in our community. And I think that's about it. We hope to see you again in the future, and thank you all for coming.